This week on the Business and Marketing Scoop, I am talking with Sean Brett, the founder of Steeltech Sheds, all about how he started and grew that business. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. So, I suppose, Sean, your company, Steeltech Sheds, I think most people listening will probably know that brand. And I really want to dig into you about that company, about the marketing of that company down the line. But before we go into that, tell me a bit about Sean Brett, where you're from, how you got started.
Well, I suppose it's hard to know where to start. The entrepreneurial world really, for me, started at the age of 7, which is quite young. But and like a lot of entrepreneurs, school wasn't for me. So. And it's so interesting at this stage of my life, looking back on the education, and with children of my own now, I have different views maybe than everybody else on one's approach to education. But for me, school was a disaster because I was both dyslexic and I had ADHD in school, so that wasn't identified back then. So the teachers looked at me and said I was stupid, and so I learned zero. So then when I came home, we had a small farm in Mayo with just 15 acres, and every farmer is an entrepreneur in his own right, and they work hard. So I learned 2 things there. I learned about entrepreneurship and I learned about hard work, and they're 2 phenomenal skills in life in general, because you're learning negotiating, whether you're going to the mart or just getting up at 6 a.m. going to work. So the amount of stuff you learn, and the thing is, we're learning without realizing, and life is a bit like that. You know, particularly when you go into a classroom and you sit down, the teacher's telling you something. If you have no interest in it, it's all gone a week later or whatever. So you're absorbing this kind of thing throughout your life, and it's so important for people to realize that. And for me, I was learning every day. And my mother was a great entrepreneur in her own right, so it was her encouraged both myself and my brother to, we had a small pig farm, so we were given a piglet each at age 7, and we had to feed this pig along with the rest of the pigs up until it went to the market, and that was sold for us on a small profit. So we had to repay the piglet and the food, then buy another one, and then a second and a third and a fourth. And by age 13, business was good. And of course, I didn't like pigs very much, so I sold them all. And my brother sold his as well, so he was the youngest guy in school with a motorbike. And I bought 18 apple trees, which didn't grow any apples, but that was a second business.
He was more popular with the motorbike.
It might have seemed like a great business investment, but it was probably better than the apple trees. So they were very early lessons, and I was a wheeler dealer because I would have left school at 14. And I always liked cars, so I got a job in a garage, which only lasted about a year. And then I was buying and selling just about everything and anything. I had a market on the street selling plants and shrubs and trees for a while. And then I went off to London in search of adventure. That lasted about a year. And then I come back and I head for Galway. And I did 1 year in Galway doing absolutely nothing. And people often put pressure on kids to do this and do that. There's no harm taking some time out.
Absolutely.
My youngest lad, he's 16 or 17 this week, actually, just doing his leaving cert. And he's wondering what he'll do in university, and I said, maybe you take a year out and travel the world, or maybe you get a job in a restaurant, in a bar, and you will learn a lot about people skills. You learn the different skills, and then go to university. You don't have to go straight away. So just think about it and it's your decision. And it's so important to let people make decisions. Because if they make the decision, then they have some responsibility, rather than telling them, I think we tell our kids what to do too much,
Well, I think you hit a very good point there, because if it's their decision, it's 100% on them.
Yeah.
If you're forcing them into something, there's probably a resentment towards you then if it doesn't work out. So it's important, I think, that people do make those big decisions themselves rather than being pushed into them. Yeah,
and it's interesting. People always say to kids, what you want to do, what you want to be. Sure, they haven't a clue. Which of us had a clue at 20?
Not a notion.
Even 30, I hadn't a clue. Not a clue,
Still wondering the next 10 years.
Yeah, well, it makes life so much more interesting, And as well as that, what they're learning in school, I said, look at you, you're going to school at age 5 and you're leaving at 22 or 23 after doing your degree. But I says, education shouldn't be looked that way. Education is for your entire life, because what you learn now in 20 years will be obsolete. So it's not black and white. There's not a start or a finish date. And I kind of think the same applies to work. You know, I mean, retirement is something. I'm not a fan of retirement, because I'm age 65 this year. And sure, what would I do if I stopped working? I'd go crazy. So I'd take a lot more holidays. But I'll be still going till I'm 90 because I enjoy it. I'm fortunate that I enjoy it, you know.
Very good.
So getting back to your original point, you know, I arrive in Galway at about age 19. I take a year out and do a lot of partying. And then by accident, I start my first business in Galway. And this is back in the 80s, when there would have been a lot of unemployment. So I had a girlfriend at the time, and she said, I got you a job painting a house. And sure, I didn't know the first thing about painting. But I said, sure, I'll try it. And it turned out okay. And the lady said to me, she said, are you busy? And I said, no, it's quiet. She said, why don't you advertise? And that was a eureka moment for me. And as I say, we don't know what we're good at. We don't know what we want. I now know what I'm good at. I'm good at marketing. That was my skill. And I didn't realize that until well into my 30s, you know. But what I'd done there was magic, because I put an ad in the local newspaper back then and I got no response. So then I look at the paper a few weeks later and I said, there's at least 50, 60 guys, painters available. No wonder I got no phone call. So then I tried again. This time I said I'll be a little bit more original. So it was rooms painted from £15, paint included, no charge if unsatisfied. So that was smart, like.
Low entry and no risk.
Work awful cheap. I'll absolutely guarantee the work. Don't pay me if you're not happy. And I'll even include the paint, which is convenient. So I did convenience, I did cheap, and I did guarantee with those couple of lines, which was magic. And the phone started ringing. So to set up that business, all I needed was a pair of white overalls and a few business cards, a paintbrush, and off I go. So the business is set up for about €50.
Brilliant.
And in no time at all, I had a few lads working for me.
Unreal.
Because the phone started ringing. Now my job is to go out, meet the customer, and basically sell yourself. So put on the white overalls. You're a painter, you know. They're not going to ask to see your papers, like. You know, so the power of a uniform, really. It's, you know, I mean, if a guard stops you driving down the street, or all of a sudden, you'll pay attention. Whereas if a guy in a pair of jeans and a tracksuit stops you, you know, what you want. You know, so the power of a pair of white overalls really works. And it was, that business went quite well for about 10 or 15 years.
Brilliant. And how many people did you end up with in that business?
I had about 10 people working for me. And it's a business, you know, I didn't even try. I wasn't saying I'm going to build a business here. It was just, I'm going to make some money. And
it just kind of happened naturally. It just started growing organically, like. I
suppose anyone in business knows you have to do good work. So even though I had no skill as a painter, I was a quick learner.
Yeah.
I'll always remember the first time I wallpapered a room. I thought that was fairly simple. It's a grand job done. And I got a phone call that night where all the wallpaper fell off the walls. So then I got a book on how to wallpaper. You know, and I read the book. But the great thing about youth is you get up the next day and you figure it out.
You go again.
You know, it's not to worry. But I was a fast learner, and then good with people. So you know, if you treat people fairly well, that's a couple of the tips, you know.
And in terms then, so of you had a painting business with 10 people, was Steeltech the next business after that, or was there more in between?
No, I got sick of painting just all day every day. I really got sick of it, and I was looking for something else to do. And I lived in a house with a few other lads, and of course we literally went out 7 nights a week partying, because that was the priority, really, to enjoy life. I'm still a big believer in enjoying life. It should be number one priority. A lot of people forget that. But I was watching these guys going door to door selling coal, and that's an awful simple job for some reason. So I went into the wholesaler and I said, how much is a ton of coal? So it was however much, you know. And then I said, so the sellers, so they're making €4 a bag. So you could easily sell €100 a bag. That's €400, 4 sevens, 28. You're making 2-3 grand a week there. Easy money. No research whatsoever. Went off and bought a truck. And that was the interesting thing about any business I started. I'd done zero research, and now I'm not recommending that. But zero research, apart from the price. Bought the truck, and I went into a place called Castlelawn Heights on a Wednesday evening, just knocking on doors. And 15 minutes later, another guy arrived selling coal, and he wasn't too happy to see me. I then realised 6 days a week there was 6 guys coming into that estate selling coal, and now there's me. 'Cause again, this is the 80s, and there's high unemployment, and when high unemployment, people do certain jobs. Like back then, it was selling coal, selling logs, or maybe taxi drivers, whatever, you know. So 6 days a week, 6 guys coming in there. 2 years later, they were all gone. There was just me. So I was good at sales and marketing. The rest of them were just selling coal. I wasn't. I was looking for customers.
Yeah.
And the other thing I always remember about that was I went in, next door was a place called Entrepreneurial Heights, which had 555 houses. And I knocked at every door on a Saturday. And 554 people said no. I sold 1 bag of coal. Ooh. Now, any normal person would just give up, like, you know. But for some reason, and I think it's a bit of the ADHD, it just, the energy levels are high and you just can't sit at home. So I'll do something, you know. And the great lesson there was you learn to embrace rejection. And in life in general, if you can handle rejection, it's a great asset to have, because we're going to get rejected a lot in life, whether it's chatting up a girl at the bar or trying to make a sale. You know, so I learned all about rejection that Saturday. But still, 3 years later, I had taken most of Tyrrellin off the competitors.
Fair play.
So, you know, they went door to door, and there were so many of them. Do you want coal? Was their approach, you know. I introduced myself, and I looked like a professional. And here's a business card, and here's the special offers. And that was an interesting experience. We built it up into the biggest coal business in Galway, and it was very, very profitable.
And did you have a good few people with you in that business then as well?
We had 3 trucks on the road, and we had about 6 or 8 lads in the busy season on that. And so the two businesses went hand in hand for a while, because the summer was more of a painting business, and the coal, they complemented each other that way, which of course then led us on to the next business, which was Steeltech, which was a bit different this time, because we were delivering coal into people's gardens, and you'd see these old, if you can remember, the old square steel oil tank.
Yes.
They were replacing them with plastic tanks, because there might be a pinhole and the tank would leak.
Yeah.
So we would see these old steel tanks thrown in the garden. At the end of the evening, we'd have an empty truck. We'd say, hey, do you want the tank taken away for a small fee? We'd take it away. We ended up with a whole load of steel oil tanks in the garden the following summer. And we're looking at these. What are we going to do with these? So what we done was, we said, we'll cut them up, turn them into coal bunkers, sell them the following year, which worked out really well.
God, that's amazing. You're selling coal door to door. You're seeing the old tanks out the back. You're getting paid to take away the tank, and then you're selling it back to them as a coal bunker.
Yeah, it was. And it was, I suppose, you know, and it's, you don't think about it really at the time. You just see it, for someone like me, it's obvious.
It's opportunity.
It's obvious. You're helping the customer, and it's so important to always have the customer in mind.
Yeah.
But it's, I suppose, we're being creative, you know, and always, I won't say I'm being creative. I'm picking everyone's brain, you know, so it might look like I'm the lad that figured this out. You know, I'm just, what do we do with these? And some lad says this, you know, and I can't even remember who said it, but so we cut them up, turned them into coal bunkers, and it was fun, because we then thought, there's nobody else selling coal bunkers. So if we went into it, back then the government used to actually build houses. I know they have forgotten in recent times how to build houses. You'd imagine it's not rocket science, but back then they used to build houses. So when they'd build a new housing estate, it was all solid fuel heating. And they were the customers you wanted. They were using 2 or 3 bags of coal a week. So I'd go into a new estate, maybe 100 houses, and I wanted to get all of them customers. So I threw everything at it to get every customer. I even told my competitors, I'm going in there, like, so they'd say, oh, Jesus, you know, there's no hope with this lad. So you introduce yourself, you do everything you can to be nice to the customer, get a new customer. So some woman would say, "Oh no, I'm dealing with the same guy for the last 10 years. No, I'm very happy." And I'd say, "Look, we're giving you a discount. We're giving nothing. You couldn't get her, right?" And then you'd say, "What about a coal bunker?" "Oh yeah," she said, "I need a coal bunker." "How much are they?" "Well, they're €50. "I'll take one." Oh, I said, "I'm sorry. We don't sell coal bunkers. What coal is what we sell. We're just providing a service to our customers. And it's just €10 a week for 5 weeks. And can I not buy one?" "Oh, I'm sorry, no." And she's like, "I'll tell you what I'll do." I said, "Just get the coal off me for 5 weeks, pay off your coal bunker, and then go back to the other guy." And she said, "Okay." So after 5 weeks, she was your best friend. So you just took another customer. So not alone did we sell coal bunkers, we used them to make customers, because coal was a repeat business. And a repeat business, there's different types of business, but a repeat business, you want to make a customer and you want to keep a customer. So if you're losing money for the first or second time, it doesn't matter once you're making new customers. And that was the way I looked at it. So the coal bunkers, they were flying, no problem at all. And then we're looking at the same time, people were getting timber sheds, and you'd see these new timber sheds arriving, and the quality was okay, it wasn't great. And then one particular day, it's a brand new housing estate, and this woman, I'm trying to help her out, she's moving in, and she says, "Oh, I need a timber shed." And I know a guy actually that sells timber sheds, so I'll make a phone call. And he says, "Yeah, what does she want?" And she knew exactly. She wanted a 10 foot by 8 foot. Well, he says, the cheap one is 500, or the better quality one is 600. "Oh, I want the good one," she said. So he says, "Take her name and her number and it'll be delivered in 2 weeks." I said, "Okay, is that all?" "Yeah," he says, "Take a 10% deposit. That's €60. What'll I do with that?" "That's yours," he said. I thought, that's the handiest €60 I ever met, So I think somewhere in the brain, the seed was planted there, sheds, handy money or whatever, And then I'm looking at the quality of the timber sheds. And then one day we said, why don't we make a steel shed? And of course, the lads at this stage were chopping up coal bunkers, and they were probably a lot happier welding and working with steel than selling coal. So the few of the lads really embraced it, and I had one guy who was just brilliant at that sort of thing. And that's when we made our first steel shed, which is about 30 years ago.
Go away.
Yeah, so
that's amazing though, the progression from, we'll say starting off at 7 with the pigs all the way, every person you met, every customer you made, every connection you made along the way that led to the founding of that business. It's a great story.
It's what's interesting is that I done no research. That's different. Like, I'm not recommending that. People should really do their research.
100%. But I think there are a lot of businesses that, particularly SMEs, that very often organically do kind of happen that way. You mentioned like the farming part. I grew up on a farm down in East Cork. I think there is that entrepreneurial spirit within that community, and you see a lot of people from that background end up and they go into contractor businesses and all these different types of businesses, and there probably isn't a huge amount of research that goes into it, but it's something they have a passion for and they love, and they have that spirit and they go after it. And I think that's doing something you love like that is half the battle, because you stick with it.
It is. And I mean, I was motivated by making money, especially when you're a young lad and you're
out 7 days a week.
You want a nice car, or you want, there's always something, so I was good. I was good with money, because I shared a house with a bunch of lads, and they called me the bank because I was the only one who had money on a Thursday. They all borrow money off me on a Thursday for some reason. And I think when, brought up again on the farm, there was no money. It was a small farm. There was no money. So that was motivation.
Yeah.
And I was listening recently to another podcast, and can't remember who he was interviewing, but it was one of the sharks from Shark Tank. And she invests continuously in companies. And she says, I love someone from a poor background. Rich kids really have a disadvantage. Someone from poverty. And if you can throw in a bit of trauma, she said, that's even better. So it helps when it's one of those bizarre things, but underprivileged or people with poorer people, they won't realize it, but there are advantages. Because if you're brought up with the silver spoon, you don't learn the same skills.
Yeah, there's a hunger there. There's more of a drive there. Yeah, definitely, for sure. So that's how the Steeltech emerged, basically, from that journey there. So when you started off building that first shed, to get to the point where you are now. Talk me through from that first shed to obviously I think there's is there 180 or so in the business at the moment?
Yeah, we've close on 180 staff now, but so direct and indirect people. Yeah.
So that's obviously an amazing milestone. So at this time, when that first shed was done, how many did you have with you?
There was only about 5 or 6 of us, and like we were involved. The painting business I had sold it on, and with the coal business was very profitable. And it just on the coal business, it looks like hard work, and it's hard work. You know, you're out in all weather carrying bags of coal, knocking on doors, but it was great fun because you're meeting the craziest of people, you know, and it's actually great fun. And there's nothing you don't learn about people and sales. It's anyone that's ever done door-to-door sales or cold calling. It is the best training ground there is because you're going to meet all sorts of people. But so yeah, the Steeltech, it started, and I could see this was what was different about this was we had identified a gap in the market. You know, when we started painting houses, there was loads of painters. When we started the coal business, there was loads of coal guys. There was nobody making steel sheds. They were making timber sheds, and there was plastic sheds, and there was a cheaper type of steel thing being imported from China, that kind of thing. There was no quality shed on the market, so you literally had to build a concrete shed. So we had identified a gap in the market, which was lucky, you know, and we probably didn't see the potential for the first year or two because we were just learning as we were going. So we rented a warehouse. We started making a couple of sheds and garages. The first few weren't great, but we rapidly got better. And I had some brilliant people. Like I couldn't make a shed to save my life, but I could sell them. And there was a friend of mine, he worked in the city council and he loved entrepreneurship. So anytime we got together for a few pints, we were talking about the latest idea. And I was telling him about this new business, and I said, we need a name for this business, something good. And he was the guy that came up with the name Steeltech. So straight away, the name Steeltech Sheds had a ring to it. And so I had a house, I lived on a main road, which was convenient, you know, I was lucky. And so we made this sign, an 8-foot by 4-foot sign, and we put it at the corner of the road, and we put 3 or 4 sheds on display, and we were putting up the sign, myself and one of the lads, and this first customer drove in before the sign was up and bought the first shed. And you never forget your first sale. And he was delighted with the product, you know, he was really delighted, and that gave us a boost. So slowly but surely we started getting busier, and we were just selling in Galway City then. And inside a couple of years, we opened a new place in Limerick. And both were doing extremely well. Business was good, and I was starting to enjoy life. So then we're kind of heading into the boom of the early 2000s. And sure, money was rolling in back then, like the tiger economy. You could do no wrong, you know. So I was really I would just step back a little bit. I started traveling the world and really enjoying life. And 2008, everything changed. So one day the lad said, Sean, there's no orders coming in. So we had a brainstorming session, you know, what are we going to do? And we thought, you know what, if there's no orders, it looks bad, and this company's going to the wall all over the place. So if we're going to go bang, we want to go with a big bang. We don't want to go with a small bang. So we said, what we need to do is expand. So we kind of did the opposite to everybody else. We said, we're going to grow the business. So then, and it's fun because I think when one is under pressure, they're at their best. It was easy up to that. It was so easy. And now there's pressure. And I really think I'm at my best when my back is to the wall. I can put me under pressure. That's when I'm at my best. And I think it's one of those strange things in life. You know, when you put yourself under pressure, that's when you can see the potential.
That's where the diamond is made.
Yeah, it was just so interesting. And I enjoyed it. So I was like, all of a sudden we're looking for new sites around the country, and it was easy to get new locations, and we'd often negotiate a deal where you might have 6 months free rent because nobody else was looking for them.
Yeah.
So we started opening new showrooms around the country, and then we were advertising, and back then it was newspapers, and sure, you'd take full page ads out newspapers. There was nobody else advertising, so you'd negotiate great deals there. And when we'd open a new site, maybe Kerry or Dublin, we'd always take 6 full page ads 6 weeks in a row with every paper. So that was one of those. I always love marketing, you know. So the idea there was that you open a new place as maybe Tralee. So there was 2 papers there, the Kerry Eye, the Kerry Man. So you put full page ads in for 6 weeks in a row, and it was like you were always there. That kind of saturated advertising for the first couple of months seemed to work.
Big burst of activity, like
that got your brand name out there very quickly. So we were fortunate; it did work, and of course, competition started pulling back. They reduced their advertising and marketing in particular, and Mark, I don't need to remind you how important marketing and advertising is.
That was a big mistake by them.
Yeah, that's your bread and butter, like, you know. So that was my skill, the marketing, you know, and the sales and the expansion, and I really enjoyed it. So we really grew the business there from 2008. For the next 4 or 5 years, the business grew rapidly.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's when we grew the business.
And that's an interesting time as well, because I suppose maybe 2011, 12, 13, you mentioned the newspapers there. During that time, the shift to digital was really happening.
It was starting to happen.
It was. And how as a brand did you adapt to that? Because obviously with you mentioned that big burst of activity in the newspapers, and back in 05, 06, that worked really well. As a brand, how did you adapt to digital over the last 10 to 12 years?
It was interesting because, as I say, I love sales and marketing now. Like, I'm 65 years of age, and it's very important for older people to stay in touch, you know, because a lot of them say, I'm not well up in the technology. You have to stay in touch with it. And I'm not saying that I'm good at it or anything, but I understand the power of digital marketing. And I'll always remember coming in like one day saying, lads, we really need to embrace technology. I said, ye need to embrace technology for the greater good, or for my good. I had it, and I was fortunate. We had this guy, he was in college at the time, and he started working for us part-time, and he was computer science was his thing. So we brought him in, and he's still with us today for a lot of the time. He has his own marketing company now, doing extremely well, but he spends a lot of time with us. So I suppose one of the key things to success in business, it's not you, it's the people around you. You know, so like I got guys who are just brilliant working with steel, or in this case, I have a guy there who's just fantastic with the digital side of things, the technology. So I have a phenomenal team of people, and you can come up with the best ideas in the world, but it's all about the people, and getting the right people and looking after them. So I'm extremely fortunate to have a phenomenal team of people there. And the digital side of it, I mean, I'll always remember the Golden Pages. You know, that used to be big.
Yeah.
And we took the cover of the Golden Pages. And, you know, talking about starting different business and how something started by accident. I almost started a security business by accident. Because I think it was about 16,000 euros for a full page in the Golden Pages. And at this stage, there was 5 or 6 Golden Pages around the country. So we had a full page in every one of them. And you couldn't negotiate with these people because they had a monopoly. So you were banging your head against the wall. And I always got the feeling, you know, I'm just paying too much here. Whereas if a brand new company came along and wanted a full page ad, I got the feeling they were giving them a better deal.
Okay.
And I was very suspicious. So I pretended to be setting up a new company and negotiate what's the best price for a full page ad. It's a brand new business. So I got on the phone and I said, I better not use my own phone here. So I borrowed the guy Simon's phone beside me. Simon, just give me your phone for a minute. And I phoned the guy in the Golden Pages and I said, I'm just after coming back from the States. I'm setting up a security firm. It's rapidly going to expand across the country. I will be taking full page ads everywhere, but I'm going to start with Limerick. I said, I want a full page ad. I want your best possible price. And he's right. He's interested. This is a new client, you know. So what's the company called? I said, it's called Loctite Security. And he's right. And he gave me a price, 16,000. So I was, okay, thanks, appreciate it. I'll get back to you. So I was happy. It's the same price. So that was that. Anyways, like 6 months later, the new phone book comes out. And he's actually put in a line, Loctite Security, into the Golden Pages. Next thing, Simon starts getting phone calls for Loctite Security.
You're kidding me.
In Limerick. We nearly started the business.
They just took his number and...
They always put in one line for free into the Golden Page. So it was funny how it nearly started by accident. But for years, like, he was getting phone calls randomly. So Loctite Security, yeah.
That's the next one, so.
Yeah, but one of the things we did, and it's so important, is you spend a load of money advertising, and people throw money at TV or radio, and particularly it baffles me that people still advertise in newspapers. It just baffles me because you're throwing money down the drain. So what we did was, when somebody came in and ordered a shed, there was an order form. And one of the questions was, do you mind my asking, where did you hear of Steeltech? So they were, I seen a billboard, I heard your ad, whatever. And we could see, and Facebook was fairly new at the time. So we could see there was a little bit coming from
What year
there.
was this around?
Jesus, it's hard to say what year it was, but probably 15 or 16, or I have no idea, to be honest with you. But we could see the trend straight away. So then we thought, this Facebook is cool, So we started doing the promotions on Facebook, giving away iPhones or iPads, and a fantastic one was tickets for an All-Ireland final. Jesus, you might have to pay €500 for these tickets, But if you're giving away something that you cannot be got, and everyone was entering the competition, like and follow. We ended up with 125,000 people on Facebook, which was phenomenal. So that was Facebook was probably was a big one initially for marketing.
Oh, definitely. And probably 2015, 2016 was possibly peak Facebook. And that's coming back around again to a certain extent. But that was a really good time to be able to take advantage of both the organic side on it and the ad side as well. And you obviously grew a big following there.
We did, and at the same time there was a company, I don't know if you remember them, called Impact Media, and they had actually taken the cover of the Golden Pages.
Okay.
And I had the other cover. So I said, I'll have to ring these guys. So I phoned them up, I says, who are you? We met and we got on straight away, because we both had taken the cover back then. And I remember they'd done the first website for us, and I got to know them and understood a lot about marketing from them as well,
Very
so
good.
Websites in general and social media was, I wouldn't say we embraced it straight away, but
when you did it, you went all in.
Yeah, we did, and it grew and grew, and we can see social media's taken over completely.
Massively. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, as I say, it baffles me that people advertise in newspapers. It's just and even I don't watch TV anymore. I don't know. Do you watch TV, Mark?
Not really. No. Well, I have no Sky, no Ariel, no nothing. It's all through the apps. Where I probably would see ads is on demand, like RT Player or some of the different players and stuff like that. But no, I don't watch TV at all, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and even the radio is. We've done a little bit of advertising on podcasts recently, when I'd done a quick poll in the office. Out of 12 people, 10 of them listen to podcasts and 2 listen to the radio. I was shocked.
It's a big number. I think it's interesting as well, though. I think it depends on the market as well. Like, you will find certain areas, I think, where radio can work really well. But podcasting advertising is going to be massive over the next kind of 5-10 years.
Yeah, and you can target your audience.
You can, of course, and that's the big thing with digital that you can't do with your traditional media.
Look, when you put an ad in the newspaper, Jesus. What? Can you explain to me why people still advertise in the newspaper?
I certainly can't understand why people do it when they're buried in the middle of it. The front page, depending on your audience, I think kind of your strategy, there might be some value there, but I in terms of as I suppose it's just something they've always done, and they keep doing it. Yeah, it is an interesting one. It is,
but one of the things I'm a huge believer in is change. Yeah. We are always changing and evolving, and business in general, not just the marketing side of it, but everything. And standing still is going backwards.
But a lot of people are not. They get comfortable, same way they're comfortable doing the same ad in the newspaper every 6 months, whatever it might be, and they don't change. I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable when it comes to change.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was this lady was doing a weekend course on change. I just remember a while back, and the course was about change. That's all it was about. So there's about 100 people there. So there's 50 to the left, 50 to the right. So she said they were going for lunch break, and she said to the people on the right, will you just go out 5 minutes ahead of these? So they left, and the people on the left, she said, now when you come back, I want you to sit on the seats the other side and see what happens. So they come back after lunch, and the other people come in, you're sitting on my seat. Like, they were there for 4 hours and already it was their seat, and then they realised,
But you hit on something fairly important there earlier on as well, was the rejection side of things. I think as any entrepreneur, if you can get very comfortable with rejection and comfortable with losing, God, it makes things so much easier. And I think you'll try different things, you'll test more, you'll get really comfortable with that feeling, and then it doesn't. It's like anything in life. Once you do it enough, it doesn't hit you as hard the first time compared to the 100th time.
Yeah. There's a great experiment. I forget what it was exactly on YouTube, but it's this guy and he can't handle rejection, so he forces himself to go where he knows he's going to get rejected, and he does some bizarre things, like he's just walking by this office and he goes in and he goes to the security guy, says, "Sorry, could I borrow $20 off you?" And he goes, "What do you want $20, sir?" The first thing he knows, he wasn't rejected outright. Your man was like, "Well, no." And then he goes with a potted plant and he knocks at this door of this random house and he says, "Sorry, can I plant this plant in your back garden?" And he's expecting her to go away, you fool. And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry." No, she says, "Actually, I have a dog and he'd dig it up. Why don't you try the woman across the road?" And all of a sudden, he's like asking bizarre things. He went into McDonald's and he had a burger and he ate the meat out of the burger and he went back up. "Can I have a refill, please?" The most bizarre things he could think of, knowing that he'd get rejected. And after doing the experiment, he said it changed his life.
Oh, 100%.
Because now he said, "I can handle rejection."
Yeah.
And like, it's so important. Like, the sun's going to get up tomorrow, the same as it does every other day, whatever happened. So a little bit of rejection is no harm at all.
No, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I think that, I suppose you touched on it earlier on the education side. There probably is at the moment a feeling of, everybody deserves a prize, or everybody, we're trying to limit rejection basically. But I think if you can, it's a superpower to be comfortable with it, like.
And failure, the same.
Yeah.
I know a guy who was a successful business. When he was a kid, every Sunday his father pulled me and says, "Johnny," he says, "what did you fail at this week? Tell me. I really want to know what you failed at." It got to be a thing. Now, what did he succeed at? What did he fail at? Because that's where he learned.
Yeah.
And it's a great teacher.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
Is there any major one that stands out for you over the years?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We didn't just fail. We failed spectacularly. And I'd love to say we made one mistake, but we made loads of mistakes. So we went into the UK in 2016. Now business is booming, and we're just, this is where we're going to it's going to be worldwide at this stage, and I took on a few key people in the UK in particular, I might have got wrong, but that can happen anyway, and you can change them. But we went into the UK. Now, the obvious thing to do was go in and open one showroom, try it out, see how it works, and then learn from it. I went in with 8 showrooms all across the country inside 1 year.
Jeez.
So the first mistake, we didn't even go to Scotland or Wales. We went the whole country. So I really don't know how I made that mistake. That was the first one. Then the biggest mistake was a small one, and I didn't see it for a while, but no research, of course. We should have done a little bit of research. If I had done any research, I would have realised that the quality of garden sheds in the UK is absolutely terrible. They're back where we were in the 70s.
Okay.
It's hard to believe, but they really are. So there was no competition. I went in and we put in these amazing showrooms. We went above and beyond with the most amazing products, garden rooms. We went too far to the other extreme. We should have went in with a more reasonably priced product that was considerably better, but not too expensive. But the biggest single mistake was we should have went in with each showroom should have had 50% steel products and 50% timber, because over there they traditionally always buy timber sheds. So when they seen Steeltech with steel sheds and steel modular garden rooms and all this, they didn't even come into us.
It's completely unknown to them.
It was unknown.
Yeah.
And I didn't figure it out for a few months. Why are we not getting any footfall here?
Yeah. It's interesting because you would have had to go in with almost an educational element with the market, then almost kind of explaining why this is so much better, why you don't want the wooden shed. So there was an awful lot of legwork that needed to be done beforehand.
Well, all we had to do really was go back to when we started ourselves, because when we started first, we actually did that. And I won't say it was a strategy, it was just an accident really, but it was a lucky accident. We put in timber, 50% of the showroom was timber sheds, 50% steel, and then we had another company manufacture the timber. We took our 10% margin, simple. People came in to buy a timber shed and they said, yeah, okay, the steel shed is much more expensive, but it'll last a lifetime and there won't be problems. And that gradually, we used to sell like initially 50% timber, 50% steel. Now it's 99% steel. So there was a transition period there. And that's where we needed to start in the UK. So that was a simple mistake. And
a costly one, I would imagine.
It was. Actually, look, we might have lost $1 million or $2 million there. But you know what was the interesting? It's because a lot of people say, "God, that's terrible," but it wasn't.
You learned a lot.
It was so interesting, and it didn't bother me in the slightest losing money. But what bothered me was losing my time, because I was going to the airport once or twice a week, flying over to Manchester or Birmingham or up to Edinburgh, and staying in a hotel and renting a car and up and down the motorway, and I was like, "This is a horrible existence." You know, because you're like, we think we have traffic problems here. You might be stuck for half an hour or something. Over there, you could be 2 hours in the motorway. Like, I was like, my God, this is an awful way to live.
It comes back to you weren't enjoying life at that time.
It was, and so we were at a stage, we were starting to see our mistakes. So now we needed to build a factory over there. We need to put a couple of million into it, and we need to put a lot more work, and crucially, a lot of my time. And I was like, time is the most valuable asset by far. So I was like, no, we're not doing this. So we ended up, we closed all the showrooms, and we'd done deals with everybody, so everybody was happy when we were leaving. And then what we'd done was the interesting thing was we learned so much, and I must have called to a couple of hundred people over there that are in the garden shed business, and it absolutely baffled me how far behind us they are. Like, there was only one guy in the whole country that was doing it right, and he was doing 20 million turnover inside a 2-mile radius. Just one guy. And he had a selection of different types of sheds and greenhouses and that. He was the only guy. And the rest of them are just... And I'd love to go back.
That was going to be my next question.
So what we have done, we have partners over there. So we send over just one type of steel shed, and we are still supplying sheds into the UK. So what I call partnership agreement. So I don't have to go over. Basically, they just take a commission and we send them over. And that's working. But there's still a massive opportunity. But one has to realize, and so many people don't realize this, that there's a lot more to life than business and work and entrepreneurship and money. You have to enjoy life. So I'm a huge believer taking time out and pursuing other avenues other than the entrepreneurship.
Dead right. Yeah. Enjoy the fruits of the labor.
Yeah. So that's that was speaking of mistakes. That was an interesting one.
But it's good. I mean, that probably just stemmed from, I suppose, you saw an opportunity, you got extremely enthusiastic about it, and you just went all in.
Went all in. Yeah. Yeah. I have a habit of doing that. Like,
but that's the thing, though. You could. If you go all in on something 10 times and only one of them works out, that could be enough.
Well, it's I think fairly proven that 8 out of 10 will fail. Yeah. So but the 2 that succeed could be amazing.
Yeah.
And the lads are used to me in the office, because I'll come in every Monday morning with another crazy idea, and I'll be all excited, and next thing they say, it's Monday again, wait till Friday, and I'll have calmed down. So I just can't help myself there with that, and that's the creativity. It's you go somewhere and you see something, you say, I could do that a lot better, or you just, so why is that like that, and there's a great opportunity. So I just see opportunities everywhere. So one has to say, just relax.
Rein it in a little.
Yeah, that's rein it in a bit. That's the real struggle.
So what is the future for Steeltech Sheds?
Well, the future, I have a phenomenal team in place, and it's growing steadily. Only this week I had a guy in the Isle of Man who looks like he will come on board, and we'll just export to him and let him do all the hard work. There's, I think, a population of 85,000 people, and there's no competition over there. So, I mean, straight away I'm thinking you cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
No, maybe you could, but that's an easy one. So we'll keep expanding, and
With a focus on kind of partnerships.
Yeah, more so on partnerships, and let somebody else do the hard part. We keep growing the business, but we'll do more with the I have a management team in place now, and they'll rein me in a bit, and they'll make sure we do the research before we go into new markets. So it'll keep growing nice and steady.
Fantastic.
And my target is to take plenty of holidays. So
good stuff. You're off in the morning, I think, are you?
I'm heading away again tomorrow morning. So yeah, so it's all good. Yeah.
So I suppose to kind of finish up, Sean, we have a lot of marketers, entrepreneurs, startups that listen to this.
Yeah.
From your experience throughout the years, any few key pieces of advice that you would give to people?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a lot about the fear of rejection, and I'm a massive believer in people when they worry about what other people think. If you can just press the delete button there, where you don't care what other people think, that's a huge step forward, because you could have a crazy idea and everyone is laughing at you, but that could turn out to be a phenomenal idea. And so don't heed what anybody says to you. That's so important, not to be afraid of what people think of you. It doesn't matter, but I always said there's so many essential things, but there's 3 essential ones in business. And a lot of people think you got to be really smart. You don't. The number 1 is integrity, because the world is a small place, and Ireland is a very small country. So if you don't have integrity, it's going to catch up with you. Yeah. And you must always treat the customer well. Integrity is number 1 by a mile. The second one is energy. And, I talk about ADHD, and a friend of mine, his kid had ADHD lately and is worried about it. I said, this is a good thing, not a bad thing. And we always see the positive in everything, because people with ADHD have high energy levels. So I have high energy levels. I'm always in a hurry somewhere. And if you have great energy, that's a huge bonus. So integrity, energy, and the third one is intelligence. So you do need to think about things, but it's not the first one. Brilliant. So and I know Stephen Bartlett, I listen to his podcast a lot, and he talks about the 5 buckets. So the first one is knowledge. So as much knowledge as you can. And as I say, with education, knowledge is not something from age 4 to 24. You're gaining knowledge throughout your entire life. That's so important. So knowledge was number 1. And this is Stephen Bartlett's 5 buckets. And the second one was skills. And, talking about my youngest lad, he's talking about going to university, which he will, I'm sure. But he doesn't have to go this year. He could wait a year or 2. But there's a lot of people there, and they're much more suitable to going into skills like plumbing, electricians, carpenters, whatever. And that's going to be huge in the future. Massive. And it's an awful easy way to start a business. And I said, there's one young guy working with us for the summer, and he didn't know what to do. And I said, you could become an electrician, a plumber, whatever. Try it for a year or 2. And he's going to be an electrician. I said, you should consider a plumber. I said, that's where the big money is, and it's an easy skill to pick up. You could do it for 6 months, really learn fast. Get a van, put your name on the side of it, and you'll never be quiet. So I was probably going a bit too far ahead there for him, but he's skills was the second bucket. I'm gone off on a tangent there. I think his third one was integrity. The fourth one is an interesting one, which is network. Yeah, and that's so important. So one should always be building their network, and not afraid to ask someone for help, regardless of who they are. There was a great example of Steve Jobs. He was only 12 years old, and he picked up the phone book, and he wanted to talk to, was it Michael Dell, at Dell Computers, and he found his name in the phone book, rang him, and he actually answered the phone. So don't be afraid to ask people for help.
And that's so easy to do today with things like LinkedIn as well.
LinkedIn
you can literally
phenomenal,
reach out to people that you would have thought would have not been in your sphere at all whatsoever. So it's something that's very, very doable now.
It is, and most people, 99% of people are delighted to help.
Yeah.
So network, always work on one's network throughout one's life. It's so important. And of course, the last one is the bucket of money. So you'll fill that bucket if you do all the other ones. There are the 5 buckets, but there's there's no 9 to 5 in the world of entrepreneurship.
No.
And, people say, do what you love and you never work a day in your life. I don't think that's entirely true.
There'll be days you really fucking work.
Yeah,
but I think
do what you're good at.
Yeah,
and another one is actually, this for life in general. If you're just a regular working for somebody else, a particular skill. Let's suppose you're a doctor or a tech person, whatever. Find what country in the world that skill is most in demand, and that's where you head for. Like Ireland is a tiny little place, and especially for younger people, you got to travel the world. So that's just a few tips there, Mark.
Unreal.
Yeah.
One thing actually I did want to touch on with you as well, and it came up a few times, was building the team. So you mentioned there was key individuals that you had that really helped you grow the business. In terms of growing a team and retaining the team, do you have any advice for people around that?
Yeah, again, I talked about the three things: integrity, energy, and intelligence. And I think just Warren Buffett used the same example. When you're employing somebody, you want them to have integrity, intelligence, and energy. And he said, if they don't have integrity, you definitely don't want them to have intelligence. Which I thought was good.
That's a dangerous combination.
Yeah. So, look, your number one thing is in life in general. Integrity is so important. So, and interviewing people it's a skill, and you'll meet people throughout your life, and you'll meet brilliant people, and to identify them and then bring them on board that doesn't happen easily, but when you get the right people, it's probably a skill in itself just to interview people and get the right people on board. And if it's not working out, you employ someone for sales, for example, and they're not selling, they got to move on. And it's not that you have to get rid of them, but for their own sake, they're in the wrong job. So they're wasting their time. So it's important that people, I'm a big believer in the personality test, the Myers-Briggs personality test. And everybody should do that, because they'll see what their own skill is. And some people could be in the wrong job completely, and they're 40 years of age and they're not enjoying it. Don't be afraid of change. But just getting the right people. Look, we're nearly 30 years in business now, and over the years, a lot of people have come and gone, but the team we have in place are phenomenal. And I'm extremely lucky to have them. And that's why I'm nice and relaxed doing a podcast with you, Mark, because I know it's in good hands. And we have a phenomenal management team in place there. So in any business, without the right team, you're going nowhere. So that's the single most important thing.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today. I think there's so much in there for people listening. A lot of value. And if people are looking for a shed, where should they go?
Well, look, everybody needs a shed. So, particularly since COVID, what's going really well is home offices, and now we've gone into modular homes because there's a huge housing crisis in the country. So it's not just a shed anymore. There's offices, sheds, garden rooms, greenhouses, and modular buildings. So it's an exciting place, and we have a product for just about everybody.
Brilliant altogether.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Sean.
That's all, Mark. Delighted to be here.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Business and Marketing Scoop. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to click that subscribe button in Spotify, in Apple Podcasts, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. Each week, we have great people on talking about business, talking about marketing, giving amazing value and amazing insight. So please make sure you are subscribed.